Looks like Tornado's trying to get in.
Take it away, RJ.
Whee! This is, however, StreamYard, which is not a good friend of me. That's why my picture is off. I had a terrible time this morning trying to get onto a StreamYard with an origin of life researcher with speed of sound and all of that. Had a really nice, interesting talk, which I watched from afar because I couldn't get into the StreamYard and ask questions directly. Anyway, so you get to see an icon, but you get to see Jackson. He's there as an actual living organism with a feedback. Here we are replacing Darwin.
I am also a meat
episode
machine.
19.
And
I've left the live chat, so anybody following that can jump in with any questions and stuff from there, because I had to close that down. I have to keep everything triage. Mel will be going on vacation, well-deserved. Enjoy yourself next week, so that you can recharge, and we'll hopefully have going to go for it. Act as host. We'll figure out what we'll be doing as we come by. Everything is just falling apart. Dogs and cats living together. What can I say?
Yes, hysteria.
Anyway, the replacing Darwin series that I've been continuing, had my camera been on, I would have held the book up, but you'll just have to imagine the famous Replacing Darwin book by Nathaniel Jeanson. And he's continuing finally to hit a place that I've been wanting to hit as I've been plowing through the research on it. He's going on about ENCODE, which is why I put as the topic ENCODE breakers and whistling Dixie on Darwin and racism. Jeanson put up quite a few technical papers, which fortunately are readily available from the ENCODE team from 2010 and 2007 and 2012 and the like, on Drosophila and nematodes and the like. But one of them in particular was particularly revealing, because they were explicitly mentioning the fact that there were retrotransposons that were showing up and that they were identifying where they were from. Odd of Jeanson not to call attention to that. Yeah, that would be the Gerstein paper from 2010 on which had a section on nematodes, and it had material on pseudogenes. So somehow he managed not to allude to that. Then he waved an authority quote from Ed Yong's 2012 reporting on some of the recent work, and made a point of saying that one of the researchers, Ewan Burney, quote, speculated that eventually evidence would accumulate for function in nearly 100% of the human genome, unquote. That was Jeanson's wording. Well,
Because
Jeanson wasn't writing in 2012. Jeanson wasn't writing in 2012. He's writing in 2017. So what was the situation in 2017? And as far as I can see, Burney has backed off from that statement. There was nothing about that in 2014 when he was involved with Kellis's paper that I put a link up. That was Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. And you get the same kind of shtick going on quite fortuitously from Evolution News and Views just this last week. I put a link up to one of their papers. There was a whole series of ENCODE works that showed up in Nature this last week. And I was just expecting, the anti-evolutionists can't resist this bait. They're going to want to pounce on it, which is exactly what they happened. So Evolution News put up a posting on it where they're saying that it finds more functional information in the genome junk. But still, it's just basically confirming what we've been finding, that, yes, there's a chunk of functionality going on in the dark genome, but that doesn't mean all of it, let alone 100% nearly of the human genome or of virtually any organism is purely functional. And they are never going to really be able to get around to doing that. So going on about this, one of the things that Jeanson brought up at this point was that, quote, protein coding DNA is not a good predictor of biological complexity. Instead, non-protein coding DNA tracks much better, unquote. And he cited a paper by Liu in 2013, which isn't quite what was being presented. I would have liked to have had my camera on so I could be waving the charts and stuff at it. I put the full link up to the paper. It's by Guangzhang Liu, John S. Maddock, and Ryan Taft on a meta-analysis of the genomic and transcriptomic composition of complex life. And they work quite correctly, indicating that just the amount of protein coding genes wasn't a terribly good correlate to complexity. Instead, it seemed to be cell types. And they have excellent charts correlating the protein coding genes and general genome size with cell types. And did the creationists really want to bring this up? Because what it looks like is that protein coding genes are developed quite early in the history of life and remain relatively standard as a kit bag for organisms from then on. And then their regulation changes as you get specialized cell types that make use of the same kit parts over and over and over again. And human beings are very complex, a lot of cell types going on, but we're just on the top end of the spectrum of a long lineage of relatedness and biological systems. Jackson, since you've got a face that can actually talk, would you like to address that issue?
Sure. I was looking at a paper just a couple weeks ago that was discussing exactly what you were saying. That the set of protein coding gene, or there is a set of protein coding genes, which developed in our common ancestor with a lot of our protist relatives like coenoflagellates and ichthyosporians. But as you said, it is the regulatory units which are duplicated and neo-functionalized that lead to the development of different organs and different patterns. I was reading a paper just before I got on here about heliconius butterfly wing pattern coloration. The wing patterns are not generated by a protein coding gene. They're generated by regulatory genes. Or in one regulatory gene in particular, which is being expressed and then affecting these protein coding genes. So it's changes in that one regulatory gene, which are generating this huge diversity of color patterns.
It sounds like regulatory genes are very important.
And they're coming along.
Indeed.
Yeah. And guess who hasn't been doing any work, as far as I can see, on the nuts and bolts of regulatory genes over the last few decades?
It
Would that
seems
be
very much like
creationists?
Anti-evolutionists.
it seems very much like regulatory genes play a major role in morphology and how the body, how certain systems of the body are work
You're
compared
right.
to protein genes.
You're right, TD. But as RJ and I showed in Rocks, they don't really concern themselves with that. They're largely flippant towards duplications because you have gene families, and gene families are formed by duplications upon duplications and neofunctionalization of these duplicates for different jobs. But creationists really don't talk about that. They just kind of say, well, duplication doesn't happen. Excuse me, yes, it does. For them, they try to look at everything as it has to be mutations in the protein coding genes. They try to present that as this is predominantly how evolution is proceeding, when it's really the regulatory sequences, not the protein coding sequences.
Yeah, what's fascinating about all of this obsession with ENCODE is the fact that they just think, oh gosh, if it's not junk, then it's designed. No, all of this material is just as evolutionary, just as microevolutionary, just as natural selection-y as the protein coding gene side of it. In fact, more so.
As the paper that I posted in our group earlier this week or late last week about the retrotransposon, which is involved in memory. You remember that one? The ARC.
Oh yeah.
It's called ARC ARC/ARG 3.1 is the name of the retrotransposon, and it's involved in our memory because apparently our neurons have to make mRNA for translating proteins during the formation of long-term memories. And so when you knock out this gene, ARC/ARG 3.1, it prevents mice in this one experiment from forming long-term memories. And it turns out it's a retrotransposon. The closest relative of the ARC is the remainder of a longer sequence, which came into vertebrates from a virus like HIV or like the spuma virus.
Jackson.
In fact, it's very difficult to think of any genes of any note that are protein coding genes. They're genuinely novel for relatively recent organisms. It's all ring on a kit bag that's been around for a really long time.
Oh yeah. But Jackson, I can predict Standing for Truth's response to that. Well, this is just proof that God designed ERVs.
Hold on.
Well, they deny that ERVs even exist, which is kind of funny.
Mute for a second. My mom's coming in to help me with my PC issues, so I'm gonna mute for a bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, they basically deny that ERVs even exist, which is kind of funny because the genetic analyses can be performed on these. We only call them ERVs because they match with virus genes. It's like, why do they think we call them ERVs?
There's the clue as to why they're so bulky. This is why they're so nervous about all of that, because you could just simply say, oh, gee, what a clever designer, the designer.
And we lost RJ.
We've lost RJ. Batten down the hatches. Water's getting rough.
So, Jackson, what's your favorite song you should start singing it?
Come on, Eileen. Oh, I swear, will he mean? They played that at work one time, and I was like, whoa. I could distract them with my juggling. Hold on, let me find the balls.
Juggling.
There's a joke that can be said here.
Oh?
Oh, I'm not going to
It's not that kind of show, man.
Oh, yikes. Hey, let's see. I ordered a book and it came in.
Yeah.
The genetical theory of natural selection, written in 1930.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have the camera, but I have, since the last time I was here, I have Origin of Species and Darwin's Fossils.
Darwin's Fossils? Yeah, I love that.
Jackson suggested Darwin's Fossils to me.
RJ is backstage.
Oh, he is backstage. Okay, let me...
Darwin's Fossils is a fantastic book. It's one of my favorites.
Let me handle this for a second. It's going to look funky for a second.
I
Yeah,
read
my
that
God.
one.
Doing updates.
Temporarily lost RJ.
I read Darwin's Fossils right after I read The Vital Question by Nick Lane, which is about abiogenesis. It's a very good book too.
Hi again. I'm the
Welcome
voice in
back.
the black thing.
Welcome back to your show.
Yeah,
RJ.
yeah. I was in the process of saying that there's a reason why creationists are so antsy about all those retroviruses, and because if you take some of them, don't you have to take all? And there's an awful lot of them doing nasty things. So if they're okay with the good parts, don't they have to be okay with the bad parts? And that's not something that typical design arguments are happy with.
Well, we
Yeah,
have
it's
to get
almost
them.
as if they don't like it because it shoots them in the foot.
Yeah, we would first have to get them to delineate when homology becomes coincidental design, and they're never going to do that. So
I
yeah.
know why. I know why. I know why.
why tornado?
Because it ruins their entire argument.
Indeed.
They hate homology, so they have to push it off.
I put a
Sorry.
on that low paper, I put a quote in from Evograd from 2017 because he had done a whole series of criticisms on Jeanson's argument, and he explicitly called attention to that low paper, saying that Jeanson also failed to note that in the study he's citing, organismic complexity is measured in terms of the number of cell types, which is relatively constant in groups like mammals, for example. Instead, he leaves the definition of, quote, more complex, unquote, up to his readers' imaginations. Since most of these people will be creationists, will they intuitively know that Jeanson is thinking about complexity in terms of the number of cell types, or will they think about complexity in a very different way, such that humans are much more complex than all other mammals, for instance? The proportion of the genome that is non-coding is also pretty consistent, ranging from 98.5 to 99.1% in mammals in their study. In other words, non-coding DNA proportions can correlate with the number of different cell types in a species at a very zoomed out scale, more like the phylum level in animals. So everything about that paper...
Did we just lose RJ again?
RJ? Hello? RJ?
I wonder if he's having internet issues.
could be
StreamYard
it.
shouldn't
We
be
can't-
any heavier.
We can't hear you, Arja.
Bash it over the head with a hammer.
To his point, though, I read James Valentine's Origin of Phyla a couple of years ago, and he does talk a lot about complexity in terms of cell type.
Yes, the origin of all 30 of them.
Yeah, not all 70 of them. God, that killed me when he said 70. He said like 70 terrestrial phyla, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Whoa, that's a little bit much.
I'm getting spinning circles on everybody else.
RJ, we hear you.
So, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, because it's I was getting spinning circles from everybody in the feed, saying a problem with the connection. So I'll try to jump ahead just in case it's the situation that I may be gone before the end of the show. The other half of the program was on a matter that John West was trying to hijack. Hold on to your horses. The racist Benjamin Tillman, who is the most nasty early 20th century racist in the South, as supposedly a proponent of evolutionary racism. And
Yikes.
he riffed off of a single quote that the guy had given way back when he was talking about another subject matter altogether. Let me see if I can find my little papers here. There we go. I'll quote what the John West wrote about it. He says, Tillman justified his actions by drawing on the standard tropes of evolutionary racism. As he explained, quote, we had decided to take the government away from men so debased as were the Negroes. I will not say baboons. I never have called them baboons. I believe they are men, but some of them are so near akin to the monkey that scientists are yet looking for the missing link. And according to Tillman, it was the supposed biological inferiority of blacks that justified him in stealing elections. We saw the evil of giving the ballot to creatures of this kind and saying that one vote shall count regardless of the man. Then it was that we stuffed ballot boxes because desperate diseases require desperate remedies. A tiny little problem. No one can find any indication anywhere in Tillman's writing that he was a follower of Charles Darwin. He was doing a snark, which was a jab at evolutionists, but he was a Christian. He came from that Christian environment. He never disconnected himself from Christianity. He was a firm believer. In fact, the only reason why he didn't like missionaries going out and trying to bring Africans and people in the Philippines into the fold is because he was a blatant racist, and therefore he thought that was a bad idea, that we shouldn't have in them. He was kind of a super apartheid type.
That quote was physically painful to listen
he had
to.
made some statements. It was indeed. And if you want to read, all you have to do to find out how Darwin ranks on the scale of racism is to read an actual racist.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
you discover that, holy smokes, no. He doesn't even qualify at all.
I mean, you
Dar-
know,
Darwin seems Darwin's occasional references to words
That,
that were more or less standard at the time. Is very tame in comparison to the actual racists of the time.
yeah, it's like, yeah, we can say, you know, by our modern standards, he was racist. Okay, fine. Yeah, and he kind of nodded towards eugenics, but yeah, by comparison to like people or to actual
Stop.
racists, this was also the guy who was very much against polygenism, where which was the idea that the different races of humans were like different species.
Yeah, Louis
And he
Agassiz.
said, no, they're actually all the same species. They share a common origin, which is funny because Ken Ham's always saying creationism united all humans. Bull crap. Evolution united all humans.
Well, to be
it's like-
fair,
this
there was at the time of Darwin a big block of very still racist Christians, but nonetheless they accepted the biblical model that everybody was descended from Adam. The thing where it got complicated was in the curse of Ham, which comes about because of the flood. And
Right.
so a lot of racists would concede that humans are the same species, but that they were in an inferior state because of what happened with Ham back in the day.
That's what
of
the Mormons
flood.
do,
So
isn't
there was
it?
an awful lot of rationalization about that.
That still shows up today.
Yeah, it's in the Mormons, isn't it?
Without most
I
of the
understand
racists
there was just a little.
overtones.
There was
Because if you watched
there was a
Dan's talk with SFT recently, SFT used a slide where he had Africans as descendants of Ham.
Oof.
You shouldn't use that, SFT. That's
So
Big
he's
oof.
so standing for truth is
that reflects the creationism of Henry Morris's era. That was still showing up in the 60s and 70s. Now,
Tornado?
the one thing that really does distinguish a lot of answers in Genesis,
Tornado. I don't think standing.
am I cutting out?
No, I don't think standing's racist. I think it's just they did not know the history of it.
Yeah, probably. Well, because what a surprise. He doesn't
Oh
know
yeah,
history
well yes,
or
like
science.
Standing does research. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Anyway.
answers in Genesis, in the Ark encounter, they have removed every allusion to that curse of Ham. It's just they've indulged in spectacular revisionism.
I
Which
would
is
argue
something that
Answers in
is
Genesis is the
not
curse
at
of
all
Ham.
surprising.
Is Answers
Yeah.
in Genesis not the curse of Ham today?
Nice.
Uh-huh.
The curse of Ken Ham, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
sneaky. Anyway, Todd Wood apparently has just done a video that was being alluded to by.
Oh dear.
also the curse of Ken Ham would be
RJ, we
whatever
lost you again.
offspring he produced.
As we've lost RJ again, it seems like. Just a quick reminder that dinosaur denialists are a real thing, and it makes me want to bash my head in.
What time is Dapper's debate tomorrow?
If I remember correctly, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Wait.
What? We're all in like
Uh,
different time zones.
I can go look again.
Wait, what happened and for how many movies?
Dapper Dinosaur has a
doesn't.
Oh,
I'm
there you
I'm
are,
constantly
RJ.
bumping into something or other. Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome back, RJ.
Did you sneeze too
Yep.
hard, RJ?
Whee!
Yeah, Dapper's debate is 6 p.m. PDT tomorrow, so 9 p.m.
Yeah,
Eastern.
Okay.
Anyway, everybody can follow those links that are in the video description. I will mention that we have become a bit of a punching bag for our little friends at Discovery Institute because of the fact that in David Klinghoffer's latest post on August 5th, Wales, time to put evolution's exhausted poster child to rest. He goes after a certain Jackson Wheat who dare disagree with the wonderful and very substantive debater, long story short.
Bull crap.
That's how he describes it.
Bull crap.
Wait, am I mentioned in there too?
But he mentions that he is co-author of The Rocks Were There, although he doesn't put a
hey.
link into it. But he does.
Please tell
but
me
he
I
does
get
put a link
mentioned
to your response video.
Well, it's fun. What I
So
think is so
anyway,
funny about that
we'll want to
is,
allude to this in the new book.
long story short, I'm certain is not writing the scripts. Someone at Evolution News or the Discovery Institute is writing the scripts for him, and then he's just animating them and doing that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very curious to know who it is, but I don't think we'll ever know. And he did post he posted his response.
Well, or he could just be copying stuff from him.
Might I ask if I show up in there?
No, I
virtually all.
I highly doubt it.
Their
RJ,
apologetics is all open access to all of their postings.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure someone is just feeding him the stuff, because I had a conversation with him, or when I had the conversation with him on the Cambrian, he does not grasp the data at all. I very much doubt he's the one doing it. I could understand like the first video where he's just kind of glossing over the stuff, maybe, but the specific rebuttal points, I don't think so.
That leads me into a question: does poor little Tornado show up in this guy's ragging?
No, it's just me.
How come I don't show up?
We could have gotten virtually all of that stuff. Even Casey Luskin's postings, that when he was still working at the Discovery Institute, he could have riffed off of any of that. Plus their videos. He could have been riffing off of the video that von Sternberg did a ways back. He's never published anything notable about it. So I'm so charitable. I never attribute to ghostwriting what can be merely accomplished by.
I mean, I'll be honest. The scripts, the whale scripts were ghost written. I didn't write them. I wouldn't have paid any attention to long story short. Not after our numerous interactions with him. He just seems, anything we tell him is just going to go right over his head. So
now, of course, I do have a question. How would I go about being whacked on Whack an Atheist?
I don't know. I haven't been whacked either, as far as I know. I really don't watch Kent Hovind stuff either. So
giving you an open challenge. Give me a good whacking.
Whack Tornado. He's gonna whack you right in front of all of us.
All right. Yeah. Let me find my stick. Bonk. You've been whacked. There you
Maybe
go.
then you can actually start trying to punch the Cobra.
Well, we lost RJ again. Donate to RJ because it's halfway through the show. We've got
buy his book, damn it.
Buy our book, yeah, and donate to RJ. Go to Troubles in Paradise. He's got what the Paralogs of Phileas Fogg, Evolution, Slam Dunk, and now The Rocks Were There. Buy all the books. Give us money. So when he comes back, we can tell him we shielded him.
I'm back.
RJ,
we shielded you.
We already shielded you.
Oh, I knew this was going to happen because this is a platform that is not RJ friendly, but we'll try to get as much out of it as we can. That's one advantage, that there's all the links in the description that independent of whatever I am dithering on about, we can deal with it in due course in there. Anyway, I'll say again that Mel gets to go on vacation starting this Sunday, and so I enjoy all of the time that you have. I know this has been a high pressure time for you, and appreciate all the help you've been doing. And we'll muddle along for what we have to deal with next week on things. I did listen to that Origins of Life work that was just earlier in the day, and it was really interesting discussion from somebody who's just been publishing some recent technical work in that area. And so there's been a lot of stuff on the plate today. It's really nice how much of the technical material is directly available. So everybody who is listening to what's still left over of my voice, just remember to find things that you are really revved up about. Just as TD Lane has things he's interested in, and Jackson has specific things. Mel has her specialized interests. All the various people have particular interests. Tornado has his. And follow up on a level where you can gradually build up some kind of litmus test precision things. Just as Dan Stern Cardinale has, of course, he doesn't have to worry about boning up because he's a college professor. So he can just simply draw directly on his own experience. But that's the technique you do. And it means that then by keeping track of the incoming material, now we can hit these things running. So we don't have to worry about finding out that Klinghoffer has decided to jump off the gangplank on whales months from now. No, we know about it right now. So we can build off of that and present our counter arguments in due course and discuss all the stuff and more grist. We were going to be discussing a little bit about whales in volume 2 of The Rocks Were There, were we not, Jackson? So we can incorporate that material as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we can throw that little gem in there.
A quick question, as somebody who's into rocks, will Rocks Were There Part 2 have more rocks?
It will have lots of rocks.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, there's geology section. In fact, there's quite a lot on the Grand Canyon and the little ins and outs of the various deposits in there that relate to that in terms of revealing just how meaningless the creationist paleogeography is, that every attempt that they try to do to try to piece together what did the world look like before the flood, during the flood, after the flood, just crashes and burns. There's no way you can fit it into the data field.
Precision lightning strike giant islands.
I have a suggestion for what you should call the book. You should call it The Metals Were There, because metal is the best form of rock, as Arn Ra once said.
Ha. You get one ha. Everybody gets one. Although it's just going to be Rocks Volume 2. We did talk one time about
then
whether or not
we also have our president who about Yosemite Park.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Ugh. The less said about him, the better.
Politics is never fun. What do you call a AI sailors?
What the hell, TD?
You're roboting, TD.
Oh, good. That plays into the joke.
Yeah, I'm hearing a bit of that there. This will not go down as the most smoothly executed evolution hour, I'm afraid.
No, instead we all got execute order 66.
The scenes at the end that be choppy. Yeah, what do you call a AI that's made to mimic sailors?
What?
A robot.
Ha. You get one too.
Why do you call it a robot?
Anyway, what is so fascinating about the various apologetic schools, whether it's Answers in Genesis or ICR or the Discovery Institute, and that's pretty much the big block players currently, is how much there's a great deal of repetition of their core arguments. They do bump into the current literature, which is in that gee whiz mode to say, oh, this new paper completely demolishes evolution, even though it doesn't, and there's nothing in it that points in that direction, but we're going to pretend that it does because that's what we want. Yeah. So it's an opportunity to keep up with the new literature that way. You'll learn a lot of things by reading the technical papers that creationists go out of their way to point our attention to.
Yeah, for instance, in our back and forth with Long Story Short, there was no discussion on his side about the morphological characters uniting Pakicetus, Indohyus, and Ambulocetus with modern whales. No discussion whatsoever. Yeah. The entire argument is just an end run. And actually, Smokey did this in our debate. It's just an end run with, well, how do you think, the whale, the totally aquatic body plane could evolve in 10 million years? They just try to end run it. And they won't look at the fossils at this very smooth gradient of characters where you have the same teeth and the same inner ear bone and lots of other stuff that modern whales have in these terrestrial mammals. They won't look at any of it. They don't care.
Yeah, and this is a revealing thing. If, long story short, we're trawling from the creationists, he could have, in principle, a set of baraminology tools to draw on. It wouldn't help him make sense of anything, but at least they'd have some tools. But over in intelligent design land, systematics is non-existent. There are literally no instances of anybody anywhere in any of the intelligent design literature ever trying to work out, is anything related to anything? So every single one of those fossils, in principle, is either created kind, a type? Is natural selection, is speciation going on at any level involving them? You never hear them tell, because they'd have to have a model to apply, and there isn't one in intelligent design. It's just, oh no, bad Darwin bad, mustn't be Darwin, no, Darwin bad.
Yeah, that is pretty much the entirety of it. It's very easy to carpet evolution from your non-position.
Yeah. So I'm always saying, explain the data. And anybody that gets into a debate with a creationist, this source methods card is a big problem for them, is to say, okay, smarty pants, explain the data. Tell us what you think happened. What if I were to get into a time machine and go back to the Eocene and started looking at pachycetids and all the rest, what would I be seeing when I encountered design events? And are you claiming there are design events involved in any of these lineages? What would they be looking like? When would they be happening? What would they involve? Well, they've never thought that through.
No.
And so you're going to get absolute silence going on there. I'm supposed to junk all of the systematics that we have on cetaceans for that?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was encountering in my
that's
debate
as bad as
with Smokey, where I couldn't get him. Oh, and we lost RJ again. I couldn't get Smokey or Kevin Anderson to conceptualize literally anything being related to anything else.
I mean, I can conceptualize that. I'm related to my parents.
Well, is this leopard related to this tiger?
I'm sure. I think Smokey would say yes to that, but Anderson, I think, would have said, I don't know. Because I asked him if two species of the same genus of finch were related, and he said, I don't know. It's like, why not? Why do you not know?
Because evolution's fake.
Yeah. I don't know.
Just a Walking Fish is asking me where I'm going, because SFT asked me how I was doing. I just mentioned I'm planning a trip for next year.
He's backstage.
I'm working out a trip for to the Grand Canyon for October next year.
Lucky bastard!
I went there 2 years ago. It's very pretty.
I mean, basically, it's a 2-day drive from where I live, so hey.
Yeah, of course. Then again, you've also got to deal with the fact that Kent Hovind would say, "Oh, I think this carved this out. I think this happened with a lot of water in very little time. It's called the flood, and if you don't agree with me, then you're a government shill."
RJ's backstage, Mel.
Oh, good.
Thank
RJ's
you.
back.
Oh, yeah. It was funny because I watched I watched part of an Eric Hovind video, and he was standing like in a spot, and I knew exactly where that was because that's where we got ice cream. I was like, "Hey, I know where he is." And I was like,
I feel like a yo-yo today.
Welcome back, Arja.
Zipping in and out. But you're quite right bringing up that example of the finches and the fact that he couldn't figure out, that's really rudimentary. Now, if he were riffing off of creationists, Leitner would say, oh, all the 1,200 species of finch and their nearest relatives, according to evolution, are in fact relatives according to our baraminological kind. And that probably wouldn't help him any, because every example that they would be bringing up are therefore things that are related to each other according to the creationists. So where's he going to go with it?
Yeah, of all the members of Fringillidae and Theropidae, they'd probably just say, well, Yeah, they're kinds. Okay, but why? Why are they not related to each other?
Yeah.
Well,
One of my questions that I put forward as a generic one, and maybe hell will freeze over before I ever get an answer to it, is to ask a intelligent designer, okay, tell me how many design events were there during the Mesozoic? Give us a analysis of that. At which point, oops, that they're going to be up the creek, because they'd have to really work out what does a design event look like and what examples of it. I mean,
and he's gone again.
I wonder if he has too many tabs open on his computer or if it's his internet. Because this shouldn't be as resource heavy as Zoom.
I have a bunch of tabs open on mine.
It could be tabs. It could be internet.
I'm playing a Vorian and I'm not having anywhere near the issues.
I usually have problems with mine. I usually have problems with my internet, and actually I'm doing fine right now. Oop. Yeah. Welcome back, RJ.
Welcome back, RJ.
Back, sorta.
We're trying to keep away the dead air.
Oh, well, you people,
chicken over the keyboard.
You can help fill the dead air when I disappear.
Yeah. But you're right, RJ. There's
I'd sure
nothing
love
in
to
there.
see any design advocate fix.
There's nothing in their literature about how many design events there have been, when they occurred, what that would have looked like, anything like that, because that would involve conceptualizing a model. And that doesn't happen in creationism or intelligent design land.
And I know why.
Yeah, theoretically, for example, Michael Behe kind of thinks that the Plasmodium falciparum resistance to chloroquine is a design event. That the creator of the universe, having been kind of out on vacation during the Holocaust, comes in and is really concerned about making sure that you have malaria resistance in current organisms. And but what exactly does that look like? You know, the little hands of God come down and start tweaking with the little molecules inside of a bunch of mosquitoes. I mean, what exactly is going on here?
Yes.
And I don't think that Behe's ever really thought that through.
And by the way,
we have a question from the live chat. Standing for Truth is asking, what are the best books on the topic of evolution in your guys' opinion?
What are the best books?
Yeah, what would you recommend, basically?
Well, I guess both. If I were recommending just the evidence for evolution, I would say Coyne's Why Evolution is True and Dawkins' Greatest Show on Earth. Dawkins' book, The Blind Watchmaker, is a pretty good summary of how evolution works. I would also, in general, I would recommend The Ancestor's Tale, because that's a good overview of phylogenetics.
Oh, and don't forget the other books.
Let's see what else. Actually, Adrian Lister's book, Darwin's Fossils, is a decent overview of how Darwin came up with evolution.
And of course, we can't forget the book written by yours truly.
The Rocks Were There. Yeah, I guess I would recommend The Rocks Were There. That's
the book written by the other yours truly.
Oh yeah. Evolution Slam Dunk is pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I like it. What else is there? Your Inner Fish is pretty good for an understanding of homology or morphological homology. His recent book, Some Assembly Required, was very good. I enjoyed that thoroughly. The Evolution of Beauty by Richard Prum is a pretty good book on sexual selection.
And for anyone wondering, no, there is no such thing as irreducible complexity.
Indeed. What else is there? There's trying to think of recent books. Wonderful Life by Stephen Jay Gould is pretty good. Also, that one's Cambrian Explosion.
I mean, hell, even
I'd give a big second to the Neil Shubin books. He's an excellent writer. He has the advantage of being a technical scientist that's knee-deep in modern Evo-Devo thinking. And for that matter, don't restrict yourself to the books. read his technical papers. He has them out there. Another one, anything by Eugene Koonin as a co-author is going to be relevant to evolutionary issues. And beware that he is a formidable analyst at the technical level.
Oh, and speaking of people who are knee-deep in the evolutionary stuff, we're forgetting one key player, Aaron Ra.
Yeah, Foundational Falsehoods was decent. I mean, it was good in terms of like the science stuff. I didn't fact check his historical arguments, but I wasn't really reading his book for his historical arguments.
I would suggest fact checking his historical arguments.
I mean, I wasn't reading it for the history stuff. I was just kind of like, okay. I was more seeing what his arguments were in terms of evolution, and they're pretty good. His what do you call it, phylogeny challenge is really good. I tried giving that to Smokey or a version of it to Smokey and to Kevin Anderson with no success because there's no model there. There's no there.
Yeah, and there is a allure of reading the generic description book. Well, I want to read the book that explains it to me. Well, you're going to get a shorthand version of it. That's fine and dandy because any book is editing out. They're focusing on particular issues. They can be perfectly fine, but your average description book is way less detail hog than a textbook would be. And the textbooks are way looser than the amount of material that you would find in the technical argument. So use a test. Just go to Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences every week, and any evolution-based article in there, take a look at it. And if you find yourself having steam come out of your ears and completely at sea as to what the hell they're talking about, then that means you need to know more. And when you can reach the stage when you can understand the technical jargon without having steam come out your ears, that you can then explore the source material and follow through. And if you want to dispute it, if you're a creationist and want to dispute the claims they're making, go ahead, but build up an argument that is accounts for whatever data they're discussing. And if you proceed on that level, then you're operating at a scientific basis. So I don't come to my acceptance of evolution because of anything Richard Dawkins ever wrote, or even Stephen Jay Gould or anybody else of people that I admire as writers. It's because the data. You got the data to account for. With me, it was the reptile-mammal transition. That was the thing that, I go, hey, no, if evolution isn't true, then the designer is going out of their way to make stuff to make evolutionists really, really happy. What's wrong with this picture? There's something wrong with that kind of an argument. And the fact that nobody could ever...
Did we lose him again?
Hold on, he's still... Well, it looks like he's still there. He might just be frozen for a sec.
Hopefully he's not... Hopefully didn't get kicked out again.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah, I thought Neil Shubin's new book, Some Assembly Required, was very interesting because he discusses the genetic transitions in different organisms, like repurposing Hox genes and retrotransposons and lots of things like that. It was very interesting. I learned about a couple of different experiments I had never heard of before. So that's always a plus. I started reading Entangled Life recently, which is about fungi. And I like it a lot.
You know, one thing I was looking at a little bit recently, and I didn't ever really realize it. We have a lot of pretty decent cranial material from Pachycephalosaurs and their relatives, which I suppose is not surprising considering they basically just had a massive plate of bone on top of their head. But
yeah, it's kind of interesting that the earliest Pachycephalosaurs and the earliest Ceratopsians, the clades are sister to each other, and their earliest members were almost identical with little like bony bars like on their head, and that was about.
It's basically two different ways of developing a head structure of a common origin.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, one became a frill and the other became a dome, and that was really it.
It's quite interesting, actually.
Oh, are we talking ceratopsids and
versus
Psittacosaurids?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Or
how
Pachycephalosaurus, yeah.
There's like a good few complete skulls, basically, from both groups as well. Just lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a.
You can
it's just
always
this
give it's
minor
one measure.
difference. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One measure of an issue is who's doing the work. And so
Not
if you've got a
creationists.
bunch of people that are doing the work and then a bunch of people who don't do the work and just criticize the work, yeah, you can pretty well figure out which's got the better argument.
Yeah, that's true. And well, some of the people who there are people like what is it, Antcliffe and Brazier who criticize or who do sort of criticism of paleontological studies, but they are evolutionary biologists and they do their own work, which is why they're highly respected in their field.
Yeah. Well, and remember now we are in a new era of paleogenomic analysis. So because we know that every feature an organism has is ultimately based on its genetics and its regulatory systems, to connect it up to what we were talking about earlier in the show about cis-regulatory dynamics, about protein genes. And now they can start tinkering to reconstruct the processes that led to the morphologies that we see in the fossil record. And they're just starting out in that procedure, but boy, it's going to be more and more and more. And that's going to put the evolutionary field just way farther ahead than it is already. And we'll expect to see the standing for truths and the long story shorts and the Eric Hovins and all the rest still trotting out authority quotes and secondary material and behind the curve stuff. But those of us who are reading the actual science, we're waving from around the curve going, bye. I will be seeing you later.
I think it's significant that they're still like, but Ernst Haeckel in 2020. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
if you want an older argument, it's hard. It is literally harder
field,
to come by an older argument than that.
Oh, and by the way, one of the things that just popped up that I was also doing some research on just now, 2020, we've got Robert Carter and the other young Earth creationists that he is collaborating with are making an argument that the story from the Bible where Joseph puts some goats up against a fence and makes striped goats that way is not a problem, that it's actually an indication that they knew about epigenetic factors in genetics.
Oh my God. Come on.
That's so wrong. It's not even.
It's an amusing one.
I mean, like.
It's fractally wrong.
If you, you think about these guys and they say things like, we predict the genome should be 100% functional. We say that the ancient goat herders knew about epigenetics. Why then did you guys not invent these fields? Why are you so far behind? Why are you not at the forefront of literally any fields of science? If you guys predicted these, if creationists predicted fossil transitions, as Jeanson says, why were they vehemently denying the ones that Darwin used? Why?
I know. Because they don't want to listen to it because it.
Yeah, you think once in a while you might get a prophet that would say, okay, don't roast babies for your God. That's a bad thing. And by the way, watch out about that river over there because there's little teeny worms in there that you can't see, but God can see them. And I don't know why God put them there, but nevertheless, just steer clear of those because those are a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gearctic dysentery is a thing, guys. Maybe we should not drink from like stagnant bodies of water. I mean, goodness gracious.
Welcome to the Oregon Trail.
There are so many things that, like, how much further as a society would we be if the Bible were like, okay, you evolved, the universe is 13.5 billion years old, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Here are the locations where you'll be able to find transitional fossils. Here's how your genome works. Here's how this works. Here's medicine. How much further along would we be as a society?
Or you want gold? I can tell you just exactly where you're going to find it. It's all because of this geological process. We know about if you want your diamonds, I can tell you exactly where those are going to come up. They're coming up in certain areas. You're going to look at material that's certain age. That there would be practical applications of this, which regular science worked out slowly, clumsily, awkwardly, not by reading Genesis or Leviticus, but by working out the actual data. Now, an awful lot of the people doing the work were very religiously devout.
Absolutely.
That is nice, but they weren't doing their work based on concluding anything based on anything they were reading in their religious documents.
Here's how a flux capacitor
And we know
works.
what happens with Zion oil and gas when they tried to use them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody who doesn't have the rocks were there. There's a juicy section on that in the book.
Yeah. And there is like the potential for practical
going
value.
on. That stupid's been going on for quite a while because this was a dumb in the 1980s.
Yeah, there is certainly a potential for practical application for laying out, like, here's a universal language. Here's a universal set of numerals and digits, and here's the value of certain things, and you can trade this for that. Well, no, you get, don't kill baby goats, on certain days of the week. Don't plant certain crops together. That's what you get instead. Whatever.
Yeah, and don't mix clothing fabrics.
Yeah, don't weave.
And by the way, that foreskin thing that God put there, you got to remove it.
We don't like it, so get rid of it.
Hey, stop blaspheming, and get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you the knife for it.
No, none of that.
Yeah, you find that tendency. There's the retrofit tendency in almost every major religion, that they want modern things to be somehow okay, so they'll try to retrofit them. And you've got there aren't any dinosaurs in the Bible. Well, we'll stick them in with Behemoth.
RJ, that's like that. Who's the guy who's like everything he said was a prophecy or a prophecy?
That would be basically everyone.
No,
Daniel.
No, it was I don't think it was a biblical character. It was somebody else. But it's like every so often you hear like he made this prophecy. One of them was like that 9/11 was going to happen.
Nostradamus.
There we go. Yeah.
Nostradamus. Oh yeah. Nostradamus. I did there's a whole section on Nostradamus. One of the chapters, I think it may be in Cuz the Bible Me So at Tip. And the basic principle is I've grown up reading a lot of Nostradamus, some of the stuff going all the way back to the 1940s. Nostradamus always has a fabulous accuracy rate up until the publication date of the book. And then it tails off really fast. And you'll find that if there's one guy, John Hogue, I think is the guy. He's still knocking around. He's now got a gray beard and that, but he's been writing Nostradamus books for quite some time. And if you compare older John Hogue books with newer John Hogue books, you'll find he tidies things up. So a prophecy that he said meant something, he decides it means something else later on and just forgets the fact that he attributed it to a completely different event in his earlier book.
Of course. Yeah. Oh my God.
So if you can go that procedure, it's amazing how accurate you can make Nostradamus up until the publication date of the book.
Yeah, everything is a secret prediction if you put your Ken Ham glasses on.
Yeah, and here's where it got amusing, because I was comparing Nostradamus groupies to Josh McDowell and Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and showed how he was using exactly the same rationalization mechanisms for prophecies that he was extolling as the Nostradamus people were doing with their stuff.
Ha. That's a little funny.
He.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that'll be an interesting.
One of my favorite ones. My favorite.
Do it.
At one point, Josh McDowell refers to a prophecy that Jesus would be ascending on high, which is the ascension of Jesus into heaven, whoop, up in the sky. Unfortunately, if you read the actual text, nothing like that's happening. A bunch of people going up on top of a hill to do offerings to the Lord. There's nothing involving the Messiah. There's nobody leaving the ground at any point. This is a complete a misrepresentation of the text. And I go, excuse me, well, how is that any different from Nostradamus people trimming out the parts that don't fit?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. At any rate.
Yeah.
We're at the
I say if you have
a
standard, apply it universally. And particularly because this bumps into history. Since I'm a history buff, oh gosh, if we're going to talk about supposities of history, it's no coincidence, too, that somebody like Digital Hammurabi has done a brilliant series of videos on, who's a Babylonian scholar, and he bumps into the book of Daniel and other things because of their connections to the Babylonian Empire. And he just went through bit by bit, pointing out, no, this prophecy is written after the fact.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Also, he's the guy with the best Kent Hovind impression.
Oh my goodness! How does he do that?
No,
really. Yes, he does a dead-on one. He's hilarious.
His what is it? The Christmas music video is
it's not exactly an in-demand thing to be able to do, but
yeah, that was hilarious. Oh my gosh!
Anyway, we're past the 8 o'clock hour. And given how problematic all of the connections are on this, we better quit while we're only slightly behind. Thank you, Mel, for hosting. Thank you, Jackson and TD Lane and Tornado Pelt for coming in.
Bashing my PC over the head with the hammer.
Don't do that. That's bad.
No bueno.
All right, signing off, guys.
See ya.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
And buy RJ's book.
Yes, buy the book.
So much old technology.
Ancient technology. Much like a computer from 2000.
What's a typewriter?
Some Bronze Age relic.
What about a rotary